So when I said fragile men were not going to like She-Hulk, it's funny how fragile men popped up to say they're not fragile, because if you weren't, you wouldn't have to defend yourself.
You serious?
According to this content creator on TikTok, who constantly comes up in my feed despite us having very different opinions about just about everything. His name is Straw Hat Goofy, and he does a lot of like movie reviews and talks about a lot of different stuff. And this specific video showed up on my timeline. And the reason I want to talk about it is because this kind of set me off enough that I'm trying to write up an entire thing for our YouTube channel about why the accusations that get thrown at fans of like Marvel, at Lord of the Rings, what have you, of being like sexist or name your ist or phobe or whatever the case may be. It's just completely unfounded, and that there are a lot of people being really disingenuous about this, and they don't want to have an actual conversation about why a show, in this case She-Hulk, sucks, or why there are fans who think it sucks, and it doesn't have anything to do with it being a female lead, which he, in this, is going to kind of argue the opposite. But I just want to play this. It's not a super long clip.
Well, I think the main thing people have to realize is we just don't like green people.
Yeah, we're anti-green people. Yeah. All right. Well, let me play this real quick, and then we can talk about it for a couple minutes, and then at some point down the road, once I finally get everything written out and recorded, and I get Joseph to help me with some of the recording, I'm going to put a whole thing out about really why the argument around this is mostly disingenuous, because I understand, and I think Joseph understands, it's like, sure, there are people out there that legitimately just hate anything with like a female lead in it, or, you know, that is like empowering towards women. Those people exist. The thing is as far as I've been able to tell, it's like a percent, like maybe 1% of like nerd populations. And so let me play this real quick, because I think I have a couple things to say about it, but I'm curious about what you think about this too.
So the talk about She-Hulk has really been bringing me back to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier era. For those of you guys who jumped on board when I was covering that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But let's check out something that really made me think.
Here's the thing, Bruce. I'm great at controlling my anger. I do it all the time. When I'm catcalled in the street, when incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me, I do it. Because if I don't, I will get called emotional or difficult, or might just literally get murdered.
As we can see, self-pity is She-Hulk's superpower.
So you saw what happened there, but why would I make the Falcon and the Winter Soldier She-Hulk comparison? Because while I was covering Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I realized that it always comes down to an unwillingness to understand an experience that is not your own, and I'm seeing that with She-Hulk right now. Here you have a show that talks about the black man's experience in America, and when I explained that, people didn't want to hear it. Then you have a show that perfectly points out the woman's experience in America in the first episode. It's crazy how you can hear someone talk about their life and then tell them they're wrong.
You know what the issue is that I've noticed with a ton of people? I think there's this idea that we even grew up with, and that's permeated since our generation, right? Is this, your feelings mean that you're 100% correct. And I think that's where it comes from, rather than actually ascertaining reality. So, for example, I'll use this example. It's pretty safe. If all my interactions with women were terrible that I was trying to date, and I say all women are terrible, no, that's not true. That's anecdotal, right?
Yeah.
You can't do that. That's not fair. In that same sense, that's what he's doing that on multiple fronts. But go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, one of the biggest problems that, okay, so I saw that clip a while back, and I just kind of ignored it because I was like, all right, we've heard these arguments a million times. At this point, it's just, it's like what we were talking about with the gay Hobbit thing. They're just going back to the stuff that with what's her face from Rings of Power that's playing Galadriel.
Yes.
Morfred something
Clark.
or other. Clark. They go back to the exact same playbook. People take something like Lord of the Rings, they take something like She-Hulk, and they try to give you a reason for why they don't like it. There have been a lot of people, including Matt Walsh, by the way. He took, and just to be clear, neither of us are exactly fans of the Daily Wire. This don't.
Isn't it dumb that we have to say that?
Yeah,
though?
it's completely stupid that we have to say that. But to be very clear, we don't like the Daily Wire. But that doesn't mean. But I was gonna say, but that doesn't mean that I don't agree occasionally with things that they say.
Same thing with the Young Turks,
right? And of course, then you've got Brett Cooper, and I'm totally fine with that. So that's Daily Wire. Whatever. I'm trying to make a joke, but if you go, I've got the video, and this is what I was telling you. I'm gonna put something together at some point about this because he took a 2-second clip of Matt Walsh making kind of a pretty lame joke.
As we can see, self-pity is She-Hulk's superpower.
Or whatever, and he used that as his springboard to spout a specific opinion that is kind of the general narrative, that it's well, they just don't understand these lived experiences or whatever. It's but if you listen to the rest of the clip, Matt Walsh actually mentions, he's this is not taking away from the potential lived experiences of women in America. And the other issue, and this is the thing that he completely has avoided, and unless he's made a video since talking about this clip is specifically what she's doing, talking to Hulk, makes no sense because Hulk has gone through significantly more and harder hardships than She-Hulk has. The dude, he's been suicidal. He's had the government try to murder him for most of his life. Some people were taking some stuff from the comics talking about how his parents were abusive and his father killed his mother right in front of him. And then at the end of that clip, She-Hulk's she's you can never understand my experiences. Mine are worse than yours. And so not only is it annoying in the context of it's very preachy as sort of a fourth wall breaking kind of thing. There's a reason that they put that in there, but it's also really annoying because within the context of the world, she comes off looking like a horrible person. And this is what they've been doing through all of Phase 4. Their idea of empowering women is essentially by tearing down other characters, and most of the time, those the female characters in Phase 4 have murdered a lot of people. They've
done horrible things,
and they've just either been forgiven or someone's made excuses for them.
They'll never know what you sacrificed for them.
It wouldn't change how they see me.
There's
the
not
sympathetic female villain trope.
Exactly. And there's not an honest conversation going on around the writing style and what they're doing with these characters. Everyone is just quick to the ists and the phobes and whatever the case may be, and we're seeing that now with all of this stuff going on with the Rings of Power. The show's not even out yet, and they're already saying that the Lord of the Rings fans are the most toxic of any of them, that that there's all of these racist fans out there, that they're sexist. And at the end of the day, everyone's just going no. You all just don't understand Tolkien's lore. That is the main point. All of this other stuff, it's there, it's dressing, it's things to talk about, but it's not what we're really going. What the point is.
Because all of us are willing. I say all of us. A vast majority of people are willing to celebrate different cultures. The idea that every single fantasy work you create has to represent multiple ethnicities and cultures isn't true, because we can appreciate aspects of European culture, and then we can also see the bad parts of that. Same thing with African, Asian, Hispanic, so on and so forth. You know what I mean? And so I think obviously, as we said, when and where it makes sense, it's fine. But this idea with Marvel is just bad writing. Because so we mentioned, these females doing horrific things, and I think you actually have it pulled up. I do too. But Captain Marvel wiped out scores of Kree that were no less brainwashed.
Yeah, this is something that Mahler put out, by the way.
Yeah. That was just the day prior while shouting, and celebrating, right? And then Black Widow buried hundreds of prisoners in a death trap to access a prisoner she wanted to find the Red Room. And then one of my favorites is Wanda tortured, kidnapped, and murdered hundreds of people, including children, so that she could hang out with figments of her imagination. She even had the option to find a universe where she could replace a dead version of herself, but nope.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. I mean, we could go on. And so I think, it comes back down to just because something is your lived experience, that can be something that's anecdotal, but not necessarily true for a whole or true for the collective. It could be, right?
Yeah. It absolutely could have been. And I haven't watched all of She-Hulk yet. I haven't exactly been eager to
just don't
jump.
care
Well,
to.
that's the thing, is I haven't been eager in any way to jump back into Marvel at all. I haven't seen Love and Thunder, which hasn't been doing very well, and it seems like the longer that that's been out, the more people that are kind of going like, Marvel might not be doing quite as well. But of course, you have a lot of people who are still standing for it, and I understand people liking the stuff. It's fine. Like, if you like it, great. But if we can't have an honest conversation about where their faults are and where we think we're seeing issues with the writing and the character development and the world building, because most of the time, when we do, people just immediately go to, well, you just don't like it because it's a female lead. So
because they can't ascertain and argue with what you're trying to say.
Let me
what you're bringing up.
Exactly. Let me pull this up real quick, because I wrote down. I've been part of what I'm trying to do for this project is I wrote down a list of a bunch of movies that have movies and TV so far that have female leads in them that I really like. So let me just run this off real quick.
Okay.
You ready? You're Next, Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, Alien and Aliens, Terminator 1 and 2, The Guest, It Follows, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Return of the King, Trick or Treat, Mean Girls. I won't stop talking about Arcane Season 1, Jojo Rabbit, The Kid Detective, Everywhere All at Once, which I think that's not the full title of the movie, but anyway. Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, Queen's Gambit, Ready or Not, Parasite, Kick-Ass, The Shallows, I, Tonya, The Witch. And that's as far as I got in like 30 minutes. And there's close to 20 films / TV shows on there.
Yeah.
And yet, because we don't like Phase 4, and we're not happy with the direction of the new Lord of the Rings show, the enjoyment and love of these films and TV shows means nothing.
It's just like when we criticize, exactly. But they're not going to care, because it's going to go back to that argument, well, just because you like these movies with female leads in it doesn't mean you're not a misogynist or something.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not willing to have an honest conversation, because it's just like with Eternals, when that person was saying, well, Eternals is great because of the diversity in it, and I comment as like, well, Marvel movies have been diverse before, and they said, well, name one person or name one movie that was as diverse as Eternals in front of the screen and behind the screen. And I said Black Panther.